Thank you for coming to tonight's program. My name is Michaela Habersky, and I serve as the Marketing and Events Assistant at the Jefferson Educational Society. It is my pleasure to kick off tonight's event, and I'm here to do 3 quick things. I promise I'll get out of your hair. First, I want to go over some housekeeping notes. Then I'm going to tell you about some upcoming JES events. And then finally, I'll introduce tonight's speaker. First, some housekeeping. If you need assistance during the event, please feel free to ask me any questions. I'm happy to help. And some quick reminders for the Q&A portion that will take place after the conclusion of tonight's presentation. Please raise your hand to be called on and project your voice as best as possible. If you need a microphone, I will bring it to you. Also, please keep your questions brief and concise and refrain from offering lengthy statements. Now to upcoming events. Tomorrow at 7 p.m., Michael Bussell will be at Erie Center for Arts and Technology, or ECAT, to present Redistricting Reform, Making Sure Voters Pick Their Lawmakers. Then, Monday at 6 p.m., Michael Bussell will deliver a lecture at the Lincoln Community Center Library titled Redistricting Reform, Making Sure Voters Pick Their Lawmakers. Finally, on Tuesday at 7 p.m., John Hardig will take the stage at the Jefferson Educational Society to present Working Towards a Bi-National Great Lakes Waterfront Trail. Lastly, I would like to introduce tonight's presenter. Kathryn DiVittorio is a Corey, Pennsylvania native who returned to her hometown 6 years ago, ready to embrace the community that raised her. Brandishing dual bachelor's degree from Arizona State University, DiVittorio works as the assistant director at the Corey Higher Education Council, a nonprofit with a mission near and dear to her heart. DiVittorio is dedicated to her career, but that and all the rest that she does is driven by her number one priorities, her 2 children, Emily and Nicholas. Making the world a more beautiful place for them is her chief focus, and she strives to model with them through public service, holding public office as the school board director of the Corey Area School District, as well as sitting on the board of the Autism Society of Northwestern Pennsylvania, as well as holding the position of treasurer on the Corey Chamber of Commerce. DiVittorio is also a connectivity champion for Impact Corey and the JES's Civic Leadership Academy Cohort 2025 graduate. As a JES Raimy Fellow, she has completed and presented on her research on the need for greater autism support in rural communities. In the rare moments of me time, she enjoys attending to her bees, gardening, spending time with her sibling Liz, and loving on her very husky-sized husky, Freya. Let's give a warm JES welcome to Kat DiVittorio.
Thank you so much, Michaela. I first want to thank the Jefferson Educational Society for allowing me to do my research with the Raimy, and Dr. Roth, who wasn't here, for helping me through and guiding me to do my research on creating a rural hub in Corey, Pennsylvania. I would like to start with kind of a brief introduction just on the reason that I'm doing this, and that would be my babies. These are my babies pictured. This is my Nicholas. He's my 6-year-old son, and my Emily. She's 14 years old, and she is 2 inches taller than me now. So Nicholas received his autism diagnosis when he was just about 2 years old. We underwent an entire 2-hour drive to Pittsburgh as they determined that he was not eligible for diagnosis in Erie just because of the severity for his autism. We underwent 2 days of diagnosis processing with a doctor that we had never met in an unfamiliar clinic, which was the UPMC Children's Neurological. After those 2 days, we were given a profound nonverbal autistic diagnosis for Nicholas. They gave me 180 hours a month of prescribed therapies, and they said, okay, go ahead, you're on your way, thank you. That 2-hour drive back was filled with uncertainty, it was filled with fear, and it was filled with a whole lot of what ifs. We got home, really no one reached out. We started the very long, arduous journey of trying to find therapies, trying to figure out what support we had, and we came up with a lot of no's. There really isn't anything in Corey that specifically tailors to Nicholas. The schooling is limited to the public school options and the early interventive services, and we would have to travel for any of the more severe therapies that he would need. In addition to that, we would never come close to the hours that he would actually need for his speech or for his OT, and the barrier of transport, because he doesn't really like to sit in a car for 45 minutes, was always there. During this process, my Emily was diagnosed as autistic level 1. However, she was diagnosed with dyspraxia, which is she doesn't have a lot of understanding of her own spatial awareness. This was another one of those things where we had to go to Pittsburgh for the diagnosis, and once she was diagnosed, they told us, really, there's no therapies anywhere short of Pittsburgh, so kind of figure that one out. So all of this happened, and I've spent the last few years just trying to figure out how to do right by my children. What do I do? How do I move forward? Where do I go from here? I don't want to move. I just moved back to Corey. I have a pretty well-established career. It was a great place to grow up. So that's where I came to the realization that really, if I want them to have the services and the education and everything that I want for them, I was just going to have to do it myself. So that brings us to where we're at today. I'm going to discuss in our agenda what autism is, why we need a rural hub, what already exists in the areas, what the DiVittorio Center wants to do, where I'm at in the process, and then how everybody can help with that. So defining autism, autism spectrum disorder, hereby referred to as ASD, is a neurological and developmental disorder that affects how people interact with others, communicate, and behave. There are 3 levels to the autism spectrum disorder. Level 1 is considered high-functioning autism. High-functioning autism is literally one of my least favorite terms at all. It allows people to think that there's a better or a worse autism. However, that is currently how they refer to level 1. Level 2 autism just indicates that you need significant assistance. However, there isn't the same nonverbal aspects. There's not the same behavioral aspects that they put to level 2 autism. And then level 3 is now referred to as profound autism. Previously it was referred to as severe autism. They moved away from that. And profound autism states that you're going to need a very substantial amount of support through your entire life. You may never be able to live independently. A lot of children that are diagnosed with profound autism are originally given that diagnosis due to lack of verbal and the inability to speak. However, that doesn't specify what kind of profound autism you have. Now, these definitions come from the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual of Mental Disorders. There is no full way to capture the diagnosis of ASD traits and experiences. When you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. There is no way to define anybody's autism based on everybody else's autism. It's very, very individual. That's why they refer to it as a spectrum. Now, many traditional public schools do follow the guidelines for the Free and Appropriate Public Education Act. And these guidelines are there for educational purposes. However, there's no real way to specify to the autism spectrum because of the fact that it's so varied and it's so different. 64% of students with an autism diagnosis are reported as using IEPs in the public school systems, and they also have various therapies in addition to those. Now, the therapy spectrum for somebody on autism can rate for occupational therapy, behavioral support therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, and eating therapies. However, not every person on the autism spectrum needs these, and not every therapy is available for every student who is requesting these. Public school requirements offer support for therapies that are implemented at this time required as 1 day a week. However, the Children's Autism Spectrum reports that best practices have no less than 25 to 40 hours of one-on-one therapy per prescribed type. This is almost impossible when you look at a rural community such as Corey, as there really isn't a specific time set aside in the classroom besides the 1 day a week, in addition to the fact that there is a very big barrier to receiving those different types of therapies. I know with my son, his speech therapy, once he was receiving it, his speech therapist actually told me that she was typically only able to do speech delays, not profound nonverbal autism, and she referred me to Erie, which again, there was that barrier for that. However, a lot of people don't have access to a vehicle. Corey is 45 minutes away, 35 miles. So a lot of people have the barriers of transportation, they have the barriers of time and availability to do that. So sometimes children are going completely without outside speech therapies, OTs, things of that nature. As of 2025, 1 in 34 children are identified with having autism spectrum disorder. That doesn't include the fact that there are other neurodivergences that are being prescribed. So it's actually 1 in 16 children are prescribed with a neurodivergence that can include ADHD, autism, or ADHD autism combined. The last autism census was performed in Pennsylvania in 2011. So we identified 155,000 pediatrics, which is birth to 19, as being identified on the autism spectrum. Something this does not account for is the fact that the age out for pediatrics in the autism spectrum disorder is actually 22-19. So we are actually shortchanging 3 years. And on top of that, the fact that it was 2011, we've seen the national average rise. So we aren't sure how on par with the national average Pennsylvania is. 5% of pediatrics that are on the spectrum are in Pennsylvania, which is actually 3% higher than the national average. And then the CDC recognized 26.7% of diagnosed students were actually qualifying as profoundly autistic, which would require at least 40 hours of therapy. The Corey Area School District, specifically, it serves 1,850 students, which covers students in Erie, Warren, and Crawford counties. Of this 1,850, 459 students were identified to having special education needs, meaning that 25% of the entire student body was falling into the special needs or the support classrooms. There are the documented barriers of travel, which we've talked about for outside of Corey. In the 2024 Community Needs Assessment that was performed by the Corey Higher Education Council and Strategy Solutions, there was a limited ability to receive diagnosis for some families due to the fact that they were not able to leave Corey. We do have the Achievement Center located in Corey, but for more advanced diagnoses and even for the full diagnosis for autism spectrum disorder, you do need to travel to Erie at the closest. We have families that have larger families that don't have childcare. We have families that don't have vehicles. We have families that do not have time availability to get the diagnosis. So we are actually having families report to us that they need help just getting that diagnosis in Corey, which is currently impossible. There is a largely underserved population of neurodivergent individuals living miles away from where they can receive services. And to suit these needs, we can't even give them appropriate schooling or pediatric support because of the fact that we are not able to get them diagnosed. We also see that there is a larger population of Amish within the Corey areas, specifically in Spartanburg and outside Crawford County. Those people are having almost complete barriers with transportation, with getting diagnosis, and with even early interventive services because they don't fall in the same processing situation that most families typically do. So our solution, when we look into all of these issues, is to create a space for caregivers to have one location that begins with diagnosis and would offer a full scale of services up until graduation, which is 22, not 21 for the PA state age out. Corey, Pennsylvania specifically is a centralized hub to 3 mid-sized cities all within 40 miles. Creating a facility in this centralized spot would offer accessibility within those areas with less or no diagnosis points. Now these areas can include Union City, Wattsburg, up to Waterford, Titusville areas, all the way up to Meadville, Youngsville, Pittsfield, all the way up to Warren County. And then we could even access places in up to Jamestown, such as like Elgin, that direction, Clymer, New York. So we are a centralized hub in that location, and that's why it would benefit to be in Corey specifically. The close locations for services that are considered to be the close Corey locations are the Dr. Gertrude Barber Center. They do have the Elizabeth Lee Black School. It is not autism specific, however, it does have autism support classrooms. They do not have any specific day programs in Corey. The closest is in Erie. The IU locations, we do have an IU, an early intervention and intermediate unit in Corey. They operate through the school districts at this time, and they do cover a wide variety of services. However, if you don't have a child within those support classrooms, the home services are very, very limited. It's based on the hours that they have availability, and they have staffing issues, as does everybody right now. So you're looking at once every other week to maybe once a month. The Achievement Center has behavioral health support for Erie County, but it does require travel for many of the services. They also don't offer education as they are not a school. The only educational path for autism support in the Corey area is through the autism support classrooms located within the public school systems. They are currently offering early intervention autism support classrooms, and then the autism support classrooms specific to the elementary and the middle school, high school. This was a very new concept for Corey School District. It's actually been within 7 years that they have a specific autism support classroom. It was state mandated. Before that, it was just special education. So this is one of those services that kind of has been lacking in the Corey area school district. However, they do have the autism support classroom now, and they are learning to identify people with needs there more than they were previous to this whole change. There are 3 considered close schools that are tailored just for pediatric autism community. The Presley Ridge Autism School is actually 161 miles away. Then there is the Hope Center for Autism. There are 2 locations. One is 102 miles away and the other is 133 miles away, depending on the campus. One is outside of Youngstown and one is outside of Cleveland. Presley Ridge is outside of Pittsburgh. The average cost for each of these schools is $75,000 a year. That is something that is completely unattainable to the Corey area school district and surrounding areas. We are below the median income per household in Corey, and in addition to that, we are one of the 14th highest in the state for unemployment at this time. The Hope Academy is actually a private school that's associated with the New Hope Pediatric Therapy Center, and this is one of the only pediatric centers in the state that actually goes from therapies to diagnosis and does schooling all hand in hand. It is a K-12 school that serves students on the autism spectrum, and they have a hospital attached. However, they are one of the most expensive schools in the state. They do have a really great model, however, for diagnosis into schooling. The Stepping Stones group is actually a contract staffing group that serves the Corey area. They send educators and therapists directly to you based on the availability. They do accept insurances, but it has to be privatized insurance. They don't accept any of the state insurances. Now, that is another barrier for people in Corey, as Medicaid and Medicare are very high. In addition to that, it is based on the providers being in the area availability, and we are, again, in a desert for where there's therapists that are available. This is one of those programs that is very, very costly. It can range anywhere between $60 to $150 an hour just to have a therapist in your, and that's with the insurance included. The nonprofit model is actually the Bridge School. The Bridge School operates as a nonprofit organization and allows pediatrics with physical and profound speech impairments through full participation. They have augmentation and alternative means for communication and adaptive assistant technologies. They work as a nonprofit as they go out into households, and they actually teach people how to use these adaptive and assistant technologies in addition to the schooling. They are one of the more easily to access because they do operate with grants, and they operate with a nonprofit model. However, they are outside of Pittsburgh. They are not close at all. The positive takeaways from all of these examples are whole person development. They are looking at a whole person approach as opposed to as an autism support classroom does with 1 or 2 different types of therapies. They're looking at being able to address the whole spectrum of autism. They are looking at smaller class sizes and therapy bridge gaps. They're looking at the education from the standpoint of therapies and how that education goes hand in hand. And there is knowledgeable guidance from those different directions because they are established autism schools. They know where to move in from that point forward. The shortcomings, obviously, travel time. There's no realistic way to travel from Corey to Pittsburgh for school every day. They are all pieces of a whole. They either all offer something that we need, but there's a barrier. There's a cost barrier, there's a travel barrier, there's adaptive equipment, but there isn't the different types of therapies we need. There's education, but there isn't the ability to have therapy and support all at the same time. And then obviously, like I mentioned before, there is a cost barrier associated with any privatized school that isn't accessible to people in Corey and surrounding areas. The other big factor is every single one of these schools only offers support after official diagnosis. If you don't have an autism diagnosis, they don't offer you therapies, they don't offer you education, they don't offer you any type of resources. You have to start with that autism diagnosis. My proposed solution is the creation of a one-stop shop autistic support hub that offers services to a 35-mile plus radius. This concentration would be on diagnosis, schooling, and therapy, but it would not offer the barrier of diagnosis, it would not offer the barrier of cost, and it would not offer the barrier of transportation. The DiVittorio Center for Autism is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that we founded in March 2025. The mission of the DiVittorio Center of Autism is to empower individuals with autism and their families through tailored educational programs and therapeutic interventions promoting growth, independence, and equality of life. The center will act as a rural hub for education, therapy, program, and diagnosis within a 35-mile perimeter of Corey and surrounding areas and support the autism community directly. So where do we begin with this? We actually started with a 12-step organizational process to become an accredited school within the state of Pennsylvania. We followed this model and we've actually begun the process to become a fully active microschool as of 2026. We actually had that timeline move up just this morning, so that might be changing. We might actually be able to be an accredited microschool as early as this fall, but definitely by next spring. We actually have programming and therapies that start the fall to the winter of 2025. We have 3 pilot programs that start in September, and therapy, we have a partnership that is being announced very, very soon that will begin doing therapies directly in Corey. We also have fully formed strategic partnerships, and we are bringing a lot of supports in the interim for the fall hub being orchestrated. For our pilot programming, we actually have a sensory play and learn starting this fall. It fosters socialization, it gives exposure to sensory equipment, it helps with sensory regulation experience, and then we're able to offer resources and referrals for the parents. We are able to give therapy referrals, we are able to connect people with therapists and surrounding, we are able to offer other supports such as childcare for people when there really isn't childcare for the autism community in Corey. We're able to refer that out, we're able to refer for grants, we're able to help people with the processes of getting assisted devices for communication, for transportation, everything of that nature. So I'm really excited about that one. And then we also have the Gentle Diner, which is a program that we're really excited to announce because we're the only one in the state of Pennsylvania that we are aware of that does this. We're creating a restaurant-style program where families get to come in and they get to experience a restaurant with their neurodivergent families, and it's no stress because we're setting it up in the high ed where it's tables and everything like that. You get to experience what it'd be like to have a restaurant, and then if your kiddos get up, if they're loud, if they're noisy, you're with everybody else, so you're going to learn that. But we're also able to bring in somebody to speak on restrictive eating disorders, which is a very, very large problem with people in the autism community. So this is really exciting for us. It empowers neurodivergent individuals and families to navigate real-world dining settings with confidence and comfort. It provides structured, sensory-friendly meal experiences in a couple of different restaurant styles, like fast food and sit-down. We're fostering social learning and flexible eating habits through guided exposure, peer connection, and supported practices. And we're featuring low-pressure, individualized support, including food-safe options, sensory tools, and adult modeling. So this promotes inclusion, routine, development, and community building and safe, welcoming spaces. We are also partnering with the Autism Society of Northwestern Pennsylvania as their Corey branch of their very successful LEGO program. Their LEGO club is for kindergarten to 12th grade, and it allows pediatrics an effective way to socialize using Legos, and we're able to help with communication skills and social interactions. We're proud to offer that as our first partnership, and that begins this September as well. We're really, really excited about that. We are in the last stages of finalizing the collaborative partnership for therapies. That is set to begin in the winter of 2025 or the beginning winter of 2026. We're going to be able to offer 4 different therapy types, including OT, eating, speech, and PT. In addition to that, we are looking into further partnerships and training programs, including transportation and actual training for paras and support staff. So we're looking into doing that as well. We are currently fundraising for a larger permanent location for the DiVittorio Center of Autism. We have 2 separate buildings that we've kind of identified. One is going to be a larger scale in the future, and then one would be more short term. We also did, as of this morning, we've been reaching out with a partnership to actually create the school in a different location than the high ed, where it has 5 classrooms and a gymnasium, but that's something that hopefully we'll be announcing next week. So finally, how can you help? Helping us grow the DiVittorio Center is massive to me just because of the fact that it will help and address so many different people. You can support our mission as a donor. We have Erie Gives coming up on August 12th. This is our first Erie Give, so we're really excited with that. More importantly, however, connections are the biggest thing that we need. We are growing strategic partnerships. We're talking to people that are looking for these resources. We're trying to get involved with as many people that need help as possible, because my entire goal and everything that I'm doing is specifically to take away fear from other families that have been through the exact same situation that I've been through, where there's nobody for them and they feel like they're in a desert. So connecting us with change makers, connecting us to people who need those resources, connecting us to those people that need help, that's the biggest thing that anybody can do for help. And then obviously, if you want to come hang out with us, come volunteer your time and your talents and be an advocate for not only the DiVittorio Center, but for anybody who, that might have autism spectrum disorder, anybody looking for resources, or anybody that might need help. And this is how you can connect with us. You can call or text that phone number at any time. That's our email. You can look on Facebook. We're on the DiVittorio Center for Autism, or that's our website. And then besides that, thank you for coming and listening to me, and we hope to see you guys more.